Welcome to the new sound of online radio. Welcome to the sound of Universal Broadcasting Network. 'Cause you make me feel like I've been locked out of heaven. A mix of today's hits and hard-to-find favorites, combined with the most entertaining and intriguing talk anywhere. This is your sound. This is the sound of Universal Broadcasting Network at UBNradio.com.
Welcome to another episode of Rebel Hearts with Kristie Reeves. I'm so glad you're joining us today. And I actually want to start this show with a big shout out of gratitude. If you've been watching, you know that we have currently a swag bag contest going on. We have invited our listeners to go to our iTunes podcast, Rebel Hearts with Kristie Reeves, and leave us a review. And the whole contest closes at the end of June, and we're giving away 10 swag bags filled with eco-conscious, high-vibe, fair trade products. And, you know, when you start a new show, you reach out to people and they don't know your brand yet, you don't know your product yet. And I've been in such awe and gratitude for all the companies that are highly conscious and are creating these amazing products who have stepped up and said, yes, we're going to donate products. We want to be part of your swag bag giveaway. So I just want to give a big shout out to our sponsors. Coffee Reinvented, all organic fair trade coffee. Bottega Organica, organic skincare. Bulletproof, if you haven't turned to Bulletproof, I highly recommend it. I use their products every single day. Golden Ratio products, they do sacred geometry glassware. Bestow It All, a local candle company out of Venice. And Four Sigmatic, they make this amazing mushroom, reishi cordyceps, hot cocoa, and coffee. And Sarah Luce Mentoring, who's been donating her book, The Miracle Worker's Handbook. And let me tell you a little bit about one of our sponsors, Bestow It All. Bestow It All is a Venice-based company, Venice Beach, California. And the co-founders have come up with something new and innovative in the candle world. This local company takes home decor to the next level and created more than a candle. It's a curated experience. Bestow It All ardent candles are made with eco-conscious materials. Soy coconut wax candles with cotton wicks, fine fragrances, and essential oils. And what is really amazing is the company donates a portion of its sales to the environment and Venice Arts, a community program that provides art education for low-income youth. We love companies that are eco-conscious and creating a change in the world. And go online to the website bestowitall.com, read about the earth-minded practices of the company, and purchase art and candles. And the company is offering our sponsors a 15% off coupon with your first order. Go online, bestowitall.com, and when you check out, put in Rebels, a Rebel, singular, Rebel, for your 15% off. And they actually gave me one of these really super cute candles. I'm just going to hold it up in the camera so you guys can see it. This is a very specific candle. It's, and as you can see, it's art paired with a hand-poured candle. They're all handmade. And this is Water One, paired with a Bestow inspiration. The featured artist is Norton Wisdom, who revolutionized performance painting, and his whimsical mermaid watercolor painting is featured as an art print and on the candle. The candle is now named Bestow Inspiration, with cucumber mint that's crisp, fresh, and sweet. Peppermint essential oil in the candle purifies and stimulates the mind, and together the ardent candle lifts the spirit. And I'm just going to show you the cute little card that comes with it. I'm going to hold it up in the camera. It's absolutely adorable, and we've been sitting at the studio smelling it, and it smells really, really good. Woohoo! Here's the picture one more time. Yeah, we've been inhaling the beautiful fragrance of this candle. It's absolutely amazing. And that's it about our swag bag contest. So remember, go to iTunes podcast, Rebel Hearts with Kristie Reeves, before June 30th. Leave us a review. Let us know what you think about the show in order to be entered and be eligible to win one of our 10 swag bags. And let me introduce you to today's guest. I'm so excited he's on the show, and he's such a trooper. He flew in from New York this morning to be on the show today, and I'm so grateful for that. I'm so excited to introduce him to you. Let me tell you a little bit about him. Oren Harris, he is a transformation coach, speaker, and pioneer on the leading edge of human consciousness. His primary mission in life is creating heaven on earth. Don't we all love that and are looking forward to that? A place where people wake up to their true selves and live a limitless life of contribution and fulfillment. Oren is one of the world's leading experts on flow. Flow is the highly sought-after peak performance state of consciousness, known for its inherent ease, power, grace, and next-level performance. He helps leaders, high performers, entrepreneurs, and creatives to awaken their infinite potential and have a profound impact on the planet through the full expression of their soul gifts. He is a true change maker in the world, and I'm so excited to welcome him on today's show. Welcome, Oren.
Thank you. It's amazing to be here.
Thank you so much. I've been following your work on social media, and I'm like, I need to get Oren on today's show and have him talk about all the amazing things you've been sharing. So I'm so excited you're here today. Thank you for that.
Awesome. My pleasure.
So tell me, I actually like to go back to the stories and the roots of what got you started. What was it that inspired you to say, hey, I want to become a transformation coach. I want to help other people to awaken to their full potential? Was there something specific in your life that made that happen, or was it a continuous process? What was it, Oren?
Well, it was both a continuous process and specific, like, landmark seasons of my life. One thing I will say is that my mom, I didn't really realize this till later on in life, my mom never really discouraged my curiosity. So throughout my life, throughout the seasons of my life, throughout the ups and downs of my life, I never lost the ability to ask really good questions, right?
Okay.
And so when I got out of college, I was teaching school and I was coaching sports. That's the only traditional job that I had. And I stopped doing that and I took a leap of faith for a couple of reasons. One is because I fast forwarded to the end of my life and I was imagining myself sitting around like a table playing dominoes with my buddies or something like that, and just in regret, wondering like what if, or what could have been. And that terrified me and inspired me at the same time.
Wow.
And so that was one big catalyst that really had me dive into the question, what am I really, really here for? Like, what's my purpose?
Yeah.
What is my gift that only I can bring? So that was a catalyst. I had a relationship. I was in love with a gal a little while back, and that wound up being a really intense time in my life, and that was a catalyst for what I would call more of a spiritual awakening. So that, combined with my questions, combined with a couple of other things, is what led me to then starting to receive and pay attention and notice signs. And I noticed like a thread that had been following me throughout my whole life, that no matter what I was doing, since I was little, people were always drawn to me for guidance or as a guide of some sort. Even when I was a teenager and like, you know, kind of getting in trouble, I was like the go-to guy. I was the oracle. I was the person who my friends would come to. And so literally it was not to sound cliche, but as I was being receptive to the answer to the question, like, what am I really here for? I had met a guy who was a life coach, and that's when it really kind of culminated and hit me. I was like, oh, I'm kind of like this guy. And that's how I got into coaching. And then I got into speaking, and then, you know, as they say, the rest is history.
And it's so synchronistic. I want to go back to the first part of that answer. It was so interesting because as I'm driving over here, I was talking to a friend of mine. He's like, what are you doing? I'm like, you know, I picked up a book that changed my life 20 years ago, which is Henry David Thoreau's Walden. And I remember coming across that book in April 97. I remember it because it had a special edition release at that time. And I was going through that book and I read that passage where he talks about that he went into the woods and he just lived this very simple life for a certain period of time to really tune within and find out what his inner calling was.
Yes.
And to he said to get rid of everything that wasn't life because he didn't want to wake up on his deathbed realizing that he had never lived his life.
Yes. That's very similar to how I felt.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And it was amazing because for me, that actually created that change where I'm like, okay, what am I doing with my life? And 3 months later, I packed my bags and went to Vancouver and started teaching and doing musical theater and choreographing. So I had that profound experience, kind of similar like as you did, where I'm like, I don't want to wake up or like be at the end of my life and then realize my life is full of regret, or I didn't do certain things, I didn't follow my heart. And it's not just about, accomplishments, success on the external level, but also how did I feel living my life? Was I happy? Did I live in alignment with love, with my highest potential?
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's similar to you.
Yes.
Yeah. And what I love is, and this is also something for our listeners, a lot of people I feel have the questions, well, how do I find my calling? What is it that, is part of my divine path, my purpose? And I feel like so often these signs show up throughout our life, and they show up often during childhood or for you during your teenage years, where people would come to you and ask you questions and ask you to be the oracle, as you so beautifully put it. And then to come across someone to mentor you or coach you, to realize that it's been around you all the time.
Yes.
So what were your next steps? You had that realization, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's been around me. I've been doing that ever since I was a kid or a teenager. And what were your next steps in moving forward with that vision of your life?
Yeah, so with coaching, when I recognized that there was an actual profession, if you will, that was like a life coach, when I realized that there was something like that, when I met this life coach, I said, oh, I'm going to do something like this guy. And I think because, and some of this I'm explaining in hindsight, but I think because I recognized that was already in me and it was already part of my soul's essence, my mind didn't get in the way too much of creating a lot of steps. So I literally said, I am that.
Wow.
Right? And so I did, do some training, and I'd been studying and reading, and I'd been probably most importantly inquiring and studying deep into my own soul already. Right? So by time I recognized that was a path that I could start, that was like a starting point of an actual profession or something I could do, I literally said, I am a life coach.
Wow. Wow.
And then I started, and from the moment I said that, then just in life, I noticed that people would be drawn to me even more. People in line at the grocery store, meet people at the Starbucks, people at the library, and I'd wind up getting in these conversations. But I recognized that even though it wasn't officially coaching, I was like, this is it. It's happening. And so then I began the process of really putting form around that in a more worldly way, and I took a little bit of training and, did the whole thing, got business cards, got a website and all this type of stuff. And then with speaking, the way I got into speaking was I had I had a phone call with a really successful life coach, and he said, if you're really good at speaking, that's a good way to build your coaching practice. Yes. And so I went to Toastmasters, which is a public speaking organization.
Okay.
They teach you how to speak. I went to one meeting. I signed up for my first talk, which is called your icebreaker. I didn't have any training at this point.
Wow.
And I wrote out this speech, and it was called Who Am I? And I went home and I was practicing it, and I was in the mirror and walking around and doing these different inflections, just trying to be a speaker, right? I had no idea what I was doing. And I got to a point where I was getting really nervous and anxious, and I wasn't even in front of the crowd yet. So I literally was like, okay, well, maybe speaking's not for me, but I'm going to go ahead and do my first talk and get it over with.
Do it anyway.
I'm just going to do it anyway, complete that, and I'll just keep going on with my coaching. Well, I had a revelation, and it wasn't planned, but essentially I didn't take my notes on stage to speak. I said, I'm just going to speak from my heart, be myself, and that will be my success. Instead of trying to wander around up on stage and not say and all this stuff. Anyway, long story short, I got a standing ovation, and afterwards people were looking at me like, what just happened? Who are you? And so then I recognized with coaching, I recognized that again as a clue. It felt the same way. And so I asked my intuition, I asked God, like, what happened here? And I realized that on some level, everybody on the planet just really wants to be themselves. And the reason they were impacted is not so much by the content of what I said on stage, but is because I was willing to bare my soul and to be myself. And then I recognized, I was like, well, if that's speaking, I can do that. So then I literally was like, I already am that. And said I'm a speaker, and I started speaking.
That's amazing, amazing. And what I love is what you just said. Being myself inspired these people, or it got their attention. It pulled them in. It drew them in. It did something to that audience.
Yes.
And from what I know about you, this is one of your gifts, to actually look at a person or look at them and help them realize, who am I? Who, you know, because we go through so much conditioning from the time we're born. We're going through conditioning, no matter if it's, you know, our ancestral imprint or the society we live in, the education system we're in, and and part of what I feel is missing, it's that education of who am I, what are my gifts, how do I want to show, or how do I choose to show up in this world? And I know this is one of your gifts, to help people. So tell me, how do you do that? How do you help people find their gifts?
You might find this interesting, and tell me if you already knew this. Do you know the root of the word education it's a Latin word, educe?
I did not know that.
And do you know what educe means?
No.
It means to draw out from within. It doesn't mean to put in and regurgitate. It means to draw out from within. And so, you know, that's the fundamental essence of what education is supposed to be, is to draw out from within. It's the self-knowledge. It's the awakening of our own self. And from that connection, you know, we will be guided internally towards the things we want to study and learn and use throughout our journey. So it's very interesting. And I think that when I decided I was going to be a speaker, I also, a couple of years later, made a distinction, because some people would be like, oh, you're a motivational speaker. I was like, not really. I'm more of an inspirational speaker. And I realized that it's the same thing as educating. It's like, if I'm inspired, which is in spirit and connected to my spirit, and then I'm speaking to a crowd, then my spirit, because we're connected, has the capacity to ignite and awaken that which is within the individual, because the energy is there. The passion is there. The intelligence is there. So when it's awakened, when one is inspired, they don't even need motivation.
That's amazing.
Motivation is more of, it's a little bit more externalized, you know, and there's nothing wrong with motivation, but it's just, it's different. So I'm more of an inspirational speaker, not so much like to encourage people by my words, so much as to help them awaken to their beauty, to their power, to their spirit, because the more you connect to that, it flows.
I love that, and thank you for that education.
On education.
On education.
Yeah.
And the education, inspiration, motivation. And I just posted a Steve Jobs quote on my Instagram, and I cannot remember, so I'm kind of going to be paraphrasing over here. But he's like, if you are really connected to your inspiration, you don't need to be pushed. Your vision actually pulls you. It's something like that. Go to my Instagram. It's on my Instagram.
Yes.
And that seems like what you're doing with your inspirational speaking. Instead of telling people, okay, these are your goals, these are your steps to take, it feels like people are automatically drawn to the next step, or inspired to the next step, or inspired to, I don't know, create change, transformation in their life. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a different form of intelligence, right? We have intellect, you know, we're studying something, we're getting information, we're processing in our brain, we're applying it or not applying it. But you know, when you connect to inspiration, you connect to your intuition, and it's a higher form of intelligence, and it's more relevant, it's more accurate, it's more precise to you as a being. And so you're just more internally guided, and in life, your spirit can move through you.
I love that.
I heard something recently that there's kind of a framework that articulates this pretty well. It's life is happening by me, or no, life is happening to me, which is kind of a victim state of consciousness.
Yes.
And then the next stage is life is happening by me. Like by me, I would liken that more to like motivation and willpower, which is a form of power. And then the next stage is life is happening through me.
Yes.
That's more inspiration. And then the last one's life is happening as me, which really points to the realization, the revelation of the interconnectedness of everything.
Yeah.
Or unity consciousness. Life is happening as me.
I love that. Thank you.
Yeah.
I love that. Now, going back to that conditioning and listening to your inner voice, because again, I feel we're not being taught how to actually connect to our heart. So much of our education system is based on the mind and not on the heart. And a lot of people have a hard time to connect within. That's what I'm finding.
Yes.
So how do you help people? How do you support people to actually get away from that mind chatter or the imprinting, the programming, all that external stuff that we have going on, and really help them to connect within so they can find that inspiration and find that inner divine guidance?
Sure. There's lots of things that I do to support that, and lots of things that can support that. The first thing that comes to me is love, right? Self-love, because that awakens self-knowledge and knowingness of thyself, right? So you have to have the space to explore, to discover yourself, like your true self. I think that's an essential ingredient in the process to connect to your heart, which then connects you to your soul, which then, this is where all the inspiration, this is where your specific unique gifts and talents are coming through that channel.
I love
know,
that.
so self-love is one major component of that.
Yeah.
I could go on though.
Go on.
There's so many pieces to that puzzle, and how I assist people in awakening that within themselves. So yeah, ask me something else.
And I feel like self-love is such an important thing. We had Himalaya over here, and we did a whole show on self-love with Hema.
Right.
And it was during the Venus retrograde, which I think was hitting everyone really hard this time around, where we were really being mirrored about what we needed to shift within and how to cultivate more love to ourselves and our relationship with others. And a lot of times we talked about, okay, again, moving out of that victim consciousness and moving more life to a point where life moves through us. What choices would I make if I really 100% loved myself? Would I do this or wouldn't I do this?
Yes.
And to calibrate our decision-making, our choices according to self-love instead of shoulds, have-tos, must, that external demand that we're so often used to.
Yes.
Yeah.
And when we're operating from those shoulds, must, have-tos, then inevitably, we're not going to have as much energy. We're not going to have as much vitality. Our bodies are going to break down faster. There's not going to be as much fulfillment, because fulfillment comes from making heart-centered decisions. Fulfillment comes from the connection to our true self. So it's just a whole other realm. But self-love leads to self-knowledge and self-awareness, which then just reveals that which is already inside of you. And then it can just flow.
Yeah.
I mean, it's there. It's you.
Yeah.
So it's like an unlearning and learning at the same time.
Yeah.
You
I love that. And you just said the word flow, so let's talk about flow.
Let's talk about the flow. Yes.
So what is flow? Tell us, what is flow?
Well, flow is a state of interconnectedness with all of life. And often when people talk about the flow, including myself sometimes, we're talking about the experience of the flow, which generally is like, a peak state of consciousness where you're in the right place at the right time. Life is magical. Synchronicities are happening continuously. Life becomes very charming, very effortless, very graceful. Your intentions, your goals, intentions, desires become made manifest very quickly. And so, but the flow is actually your natural state. And that's really important to understand that, because if one is on a quest to experience the flow more, which anybody who's experienced the flow generally wants to experience more of it, right? Really feel, because when you're in the flow, you're in a state of inspiration and you really feel alive. And essentially your sense of self, like your conception of yourself in your mind, your identity, temporarily disappears. So it's like you've almost transcended yourself and got yourself out of the way, which then expands your consciousness. And so then more of who you are, beyond just your idea about yourself, is able to flow. And that's why it seems so magical or so powerful. You're like, where did all this intelligence and power and capability come from? It's there. It's it's quite natural.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the flow.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. And let's talk a little bit about what's going on a consciousness level on this planet.
Yes.
Because we're going through such an evolutionary and sometimes even intense process, because so much is shifting, so much is happening, so much is transforming. What do you see happening? What do you see shifting? And how do you, as yourself, show up during that transformation process?
Well, it's like a death and rebirth process, you know? It's like a purging. And I mean that from the planet to us collectively, to us individually. You know, another way to say it is that whatever has been repressed and suppressed is now being expressed. That's no different than saying what's in the dark is coming to the light.
Yes.
That's no different than saying what's unconscious is becoming conscious. So that process is like the cycle of life. It's the cycle of evolution. And so the difficult part about that, what can be intense within that process, is the death part, right? And but from death comes new life. From destruction comes creation.
Yeah.
And so it's inherently a positive thing. But just like any type of growing pains, it could be very painful. But the actual pain or the actual difficulty really is coming from that which we're clinging to. And we're only clinging to and holding on to things based upon our perception of ourselves and of the world, right? So to put this in another context, individually, when we go through the seasons of our life and we're evolving, or even like I can say, like even within a business, or if you're going from one chapter of your life to the next chapter, that transition period, essentially, who you know yourself to be, it has to go, right? And so when you really are attached to your idea of who you are, like your body, your mind, and really believe and feel and have a lot invested in that being who you are, then that aspect of you does not want to let go or to die, because it literally feels like it's dying.
Yeah, and it's also the unconscious mind. It likes what it knows. The unconscious mind doesn't like change. It doesn't like the unknown. And we're going into something very unknown over here. So the unconscious mind goes, no way, don't go.
Like,
I don't know if I'm ready yet. I want it, but I don't know if I'm ready yet.
Yeah, we're going to lose. We're going to die. Everything's going to fall apart. You know, and so, but another way to look at this, it's like we've shifted from like the industrial age, right, to the information age.
Yes.
And the education system is kind of still rooted in the industrial age, right?
Yes, thank you very much.
Right. But from the information age, which is now really like the frontier of knowledge and the mind and that aspect of our being, right? So it's like physical, you could look at like body, mind, and spirit. So I'll just use this kind of like as a metaphor. So like the body and very physical, mechanical would be like the industrial age. Everything's physical, just as you see it. Then we're in the age of information, still knee deep in the information age right now, and it's all about knowledge and the frontier of the mind and using the mind. Well, the next age, I would say, is the age of inspiration, or the age of intuition.
I'm getting full chills as you're saying that, by the way.
Right?
Yeah.
And so that's kind of how I would describe the awakening that's happening, the evolution in consciousness that's happening. But what that requires to shift from the information age, which is also likened to the self, the story of self, you know, that's in our mind, it requires us to let go. And if you notice, like the things are changing faster than ever before, which means that it's amplifying fear on the planet. And why are we afraid? We're only afraid because the part of us that knows, that fears the unknown, gets agitated, right?
Yes.
And so then there becomes this resistance to the unknown, because the unknown looks like death to the part of us that knows. But see, we have to cross that threshold into the unknown for life to keep evolving and for us to awaken more to... The irony is it actually awakens more knowing. It's just not intellectual knowing.
Yeah.
It's more intelligence than knowledge. But that's where a lot of the difficulty happens for many of us, is taking that step into the unknown, into the unfamiliar, for life to expand and grow from that point. But that's the process. That's what I see happening.
And I feel like this is where your work is so important, because I feel a lot of people are wanting to have a, like this is going to work out no matter what, or they want to have a guidebook. They want to go,
Right.
okay, I have it all here. These are for me, the steps for me to take, but there's no guidebook for that, because everything is new that we're shifting into. And if we're going into our mind, I don't know how much guidance we're going to get from our mind. And with your work where you go like, it has to be the inspiration, has to be that inner knowingness, that inner connection, our heart guiding us instead of our mind guiding us. I think it's such an important step for humanity.
Absolutely.
To move forward into that.
And not only is there no guidebook, but even the guidebooks that we put together are being challenged constantly because the speed of change.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So we can't write the guidebooks fast enough to actually keep up with the real climate that we live in right now, which is, things are changing rapidly. But the cool thing is that that's not bad news. It's actually good news to the degree that you are letting go and trusting your heart more and your intuition, because the intelligence that comes through your heart, through your intuition, is it's at a much higher frequency, and we're able to live more at the speed of change, or I say the speed of spirit. Right? But we get to discover that as we take the next step into the unknown. And really start to realize that we're actually not separate from the unknown.
I love that.
Right?
Yeah.
And that no more than we're separate from God. You could say God's the unknown in a way, right? Unknown only to our mind. And that's why, even though when we might appear to be losing something if we let go, if we're being invited to let go, we're actually gaining, and we're actually awakening and connecting more to our inner knowing that doesn't always compute in a very linear, logical, step-by-step planning way, but it's extremely effective, extremely practical, and very relevant to us. So we have all that we need in any moment.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
I was just rereading Drunvalo Melchizedek's book of The Ancient Secret of the Flower of Life. Have you ever read that book?
Years ago, I heard about it. I didn't read like the whole thing, but I'm familiar with it a little bit.
It's an older book, and I just pulled it out again. And one of his first chapters, he actually talks about pretty much exactly what you're saying, that mind-heart connection. And he talks about how our left brain, our logical brain, has been the leader in all of our decisions.
Yes.
And the right brain has been really quiet.
Right.
And he actually talks about how the new age, or the new consciousness that we're shifting into, it's going to be a balance between the right brain and the left brain, and even sometimes having the right brain take over, because the right brain, that is our intuition, it is our inner guidance. It's also, as an artist, we tune into the right brain. It's what inspires us. It's our seed of creativity.
Yes.
So, in a way, we're becoming artists of our life, creating a new consciousness, a new hopefully heaven on earth pretty soon.
Yeah, we are artists. Everyone's really an artist, because creation, the act of creation, is art.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And so we're all creators, which means we're all artists.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that is interesting about the left brain, right brain. I've witnessed that, and also, the left brain and right brain operating simultaneously. I actually had an EEG done twice now. Okay. And the last one that I did was illustrating what my brain looks like when both hemispheres are operating simultaneously. It was pretty fascinating.
Did you do like something specific during the EEG that activated both,
I did,
that created that balance?
I did, because that was part of the experiment, was to see, if I, whoever I is, am able to shift or change my brain at will, then it kind of implies that consciousness is not in the brain is a part of consciousness. And so based upon that premise, we did do some experiments to illustrate certain things or to test certain things, and that was one of them. So they would say, okay, be in this particular state, or now go into the state that you go into when you're coaching with people, or when you're in a healing session, or when you're in a state of like no thought.
Yeah.
And see what that looks like. And it literally, like my brain would change radically from that to that to that. So I'm saying that to say that I absolutely agree with you about what's happening with the right and the left brain, and also them being able to operate also simultaneously. I feel like that's a very new state of being. Whether you describe it in terms of brain waves, like left brain, right brain, or masculine, feminine, or willpower and surrender. It's not doesn't have to be one or the other. It's like we're in a consciousness gym, and you can build your willpower, right? Your willpower and your ability to focus. You could build the muscle of letting go, surrender. A lot of people don't know that. You actually can do that. And it's also a very sweet and super powerful space to be if you can be focused, intentional, and have that will energy, that type of energy, of creative energy, and simultaneously at the exact same time be completely open, surrendered, and receptive. When the two of those happen at the same time, that's like heaven on earth. That's like divinity in motion, right? It's the convergence, it's the union of both of those. So anyway, just
I love it.
Something.
I love that. I love it. I want to shift gears a little bit over here. That was such a perfect ending of that part of our conversation today. I want to ask you, because again, we want to see how we can empower people with this show to find their calling, find their gift. What gets you up every morning that you're excited about? And what do you do if you have a day where you're not excited about things, where you know, in order to change your state or to call back the excitement?
I'm inspired by inspiration, actually. You know, not. I mean, I'm inspired by inspiration itself, and so I got to start there. So there's things that I do, and there's things that I encourage my clients and my audience to do, right, in service to the people. For me, at this point in my journey, I generally wake up inspired. The thing I pay attention to when I wake up, if I'm going to make an adjustment, is whether or not I'm present. Right? And what that feels like for me is if I wake up and my mind jumps ahead of my moment, then I'll slow down. Maybe I'll just be quiet. I'll be still. I'll meditate. So anything that connects you just with your soul and to your source in the morning is a great practice. And I don't always have to do that. Sometimes I just wake up and I'm like, bing, it's on.
You've been training that muscle for a while.
Right, I've been building that muscle for a while. Exactly. So people ask me sometimes, about meditation, and I was like, well, I'm in a state of meditation throughout the day, mostly, most of the time. Like when I'm sitting here talking with you right now, if you were to measure my brain waves, it would probably show that I'm in a meditative state.
Probably a lot of alpha brain waves going on over there, right?
Exactly. So, but if I notice that my mind jumps out ahead of me, and that's just like thinking about the future, right? Then I'll slow down, right? And then now if my thoughts are not in the future, but I notice that my energy is in the future, and what that feels like is like anxiousness in the body, which means that your energy's already anticipating your day, then I'll slow down. Right. So I like to start my day in the present moment, so I don't spend the rest of the day chasing the present moment, trying to arrive in the now where the party's going down and where my life's actually happening and where all of my power is, where everything's happening in the now. So that's a priority for me in the morning. What it has been more recently, something that I have given some attention to, because what I just shared with you is kind of like almost automatic, is joy. Right? Deepening in joy has been one of my intentions and priorities in the last year. And so I take the same principle. I don't want to delay the present moment. I don't want to delay my joy. So I will do things in the morning, coming out of that stillness, if you wanted to look at it like as a process, coming out of the stillness, which would be like maybe a meditative practice, and then moving into like expressing the energies of who I wish to be. So I have it's like having a to-be list that precedes the to-do list, because anything on the to-do list is the only thing you're going to experience is who you're being. And so I am more likely to focus my attention on a to-be list than a to-do list, because I can't separate myself from anything that I'm doing, and that's going to, who I'm being and what I'm feeling is going to be the experience that I call my life. And so
amazing. Amazing.
Those are some things that I do.
Mm-hmm. And what advice do you have for any of our listeners who are wanting to create more change in their life, or who are saying, okay, I'm looking at my life right now, I feel inspired by you.
Mm-hmm.
What suggestions do you have for them?
Well, it goes back to what I said earlier about discovering, knowing thyself,
Mm-hmm.
right? Loving thyself,
Yeah.
knowing thyself, and then building your entire life around the authenticity of who you are,
Mm-hmm.
right? And if you want to talk about flow, then architect your life around your flow. So as that pertains to the gifts, your unique gifts and talents, that's your service to the world, that's what you're giving to the world, you know, really to build your life around that. I mean, every aspect of your life, where you're giving your time, your attention, what you're focusing on, and not to get overwhelmed, you could do it incrementally, but really just continuously take an honest assessment of every dimension of your life and see if it matches the authenticity of your soul, because that is really what's going to unlock that inspiration, and then that inspiration then can flow into and in through your career, your work, your relationships, the things that you're doing. So I'm saying a lot there, but it depends on where somebody's at in that process. So really getting to know yourself, and then just designing your life around that.
Yeah. That's amazing. And I think we're coming full circle over here. And just a quick story I want to share with you.
Sure.
Years ago, I came across a book called The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron, and I did it as a workshop. And a lot of the work was, you know, in the course was journaling. And a lot of the exercises were going back to your childhood. What were you passionate about when you were a little girl? What were your dreams? And what were your visions for your life? And it really got me into that state where I was looking at myself as a little kid, even, you know, kindergarten, primary school, around that age. I'm like, oh my gosh, I knew what I was going to do and what would inspire me. And then I was, in a way, educated out of it.
Right.
And I had to educate myself or inspire myself back into that. So, and that was a big thing for me to go, you know what, I don't even have to go into the energy of figuring it out and really using my brain or my mind to do it. All I needed to do is look at my childhood and what my passions were. Because I think as a kid, we're so close to spirit.
Yes.
We're so connected to who we are. And I believe that we write a soul plan for our life. We write a plan of what we want to do and what gifts we want to bring forward and how we want to create our life. And then we come into physical form, and there's this amnesia happening where we forget about it. And the older we get, the more we forget about it. So actually for myself, it was this thing of looking at my passions, my interests, even as a little girl, and reconnecting to that really created that awareness of
nice
inspiration for me. And it looks like for you it was a very similar story, as we talked about at the very beginning of today's show.
Yeah, and that inspiration will then inform you, you know. And so, just as I said before, it's just as much of an unlearning as it is a learning, because you don't have to learn you already are you. Whatever is true for you in your heart, whatever that already exists. And so when you're just remembering that, essentially.
Yeah.
You know, so there's all kinds of practices and things that one can do to help that occur. Meditation, I mentioned that, is good simply because in meditation, you're sort of withdrawing your attention from the dialogue going on in your head. And in the space that you create and withdrawing that, it naturally is going to have what already exists inside you, your own inspiration, the authenticity of who you are. It's going to create space for it to emerge. And then as it's emerging, if then you put it in through the body and express it in your relationships, in your communication, then now that is moving through you. It's getting actualized. You know, so
and giving yourself permission to do that and to be that.
Right. And that's where the self-love comes in, because self-love is like a massive permission slip.
I love that.
Right?
Yes.
It's just like when a baby is learning to walk, you know, there's a tremendous space of love that is transcendent of success and failure. It doesn't exist. It's like you can't, that type of space, there's a lot of love in that. And that takes you back to that natural state of being a discoverer, an explorer, the creator that you are.
Yeah.
You know, you don't see a baby, you know, trying to walk and going, "Oh my God, I'm so embarrassed." You know? "Oh my God, I should be able to do. I should be able to do this.
Why can't I walk?
Why can't I walk? I'm such a failure." It's just like,
Yeah.
so that return to innocence, that love creates the space for that
Yeah,
self-discovery,
yeah,
and then
yeah.
follow that.
I love that.
Run with that.
So, as we're coming to closing of today's show, is there something like a final message you have for us, a final statement, something that you feel like, I haven't said that in today's show, I really want to share that? Is there anything you want to share with us?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Don't know what it is, but see, this is trust. When I
Yeah.
can feel yes.
Yeah.
So nothing's wrong with you. Nothing is wrong with you. I think that is a massively powerful piece of insight, to know that nothing's wrong with you. We can grow and learn and discover and expand, and that's a huge part of why we're here. But fundamentally, you are a divine being, you're loved, you're perfect, you're worthy, and nothing's wrong with you. There's nothing you can do to deserve love, because love is actually who you are.
Ooh, that was beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for that inspiration.
Oh, thank you for asking the question. Yeah.
Amazing. So, for our listeners who are really inspired to work with you or get to know more about what you're doing or see you speak, how can they find you?
Sure. My website is Oren Harris. That's ORENHARRIS.com. And if you go to my website and leave your email address, I have a video series, a free video series on living life in the flow. It's amazing. I'm also on Facebook at Oren Harris, and on Instagram. I'm very active on Instagram. I post there several times a day. And Facebook, Instagram, and my website are the three main places that you can connect with me. And anyone who's interested in working with me personally, one-on-one, which is the most intimate, powerful way that I connect and work with people, you can also reach out to me through my website.
Perfect. And do you have anything coming up where people can see you speak, or a class that you're teaching?
Yes, I'm actually about to do another round of an 8-week limitless living coaching program, which I take a small, intimate group of people through an 8-week journey that is phenomenal. And so that's coming up next month, and that's something that you can inquire about via my website or emailing me. So that's coming up, and then on Facebook Live, I do live videos 2 or 3 times a week, and so you can catch me speaking live on Facebook. And those are the two things that come to mind immediately.
Okay, so everybody go check out Oren's work. As you see, he's absolutely incredible, amazing. Connect with him. Thank you so much for being on the show today and for sharing your wisdom, your
My pleasure.
Beautiful, amazing energy. I'm
Thank you.
so
Thank
grateful
you.
you're here today. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
I've enjoyed it.
Yay, and one last thing. We have the beautiful Sarah Lewis coming up. I'm going to hold up her book. And I think we have a PDF of it. She is one of our sponsors of our swag bag contest as well. And the Miracle Workers Handbook is actually part of our swag bag. So Sarah will be here with me next Wednesday at 3 p.m. And we'll be continuing our conversations of empowerment and with the change makers of the world. So thank you, everyone, for tuning in today. Have a fabulous week. We'll see you next Wednesday again at 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And remember to rebel on.
In the future, talk radio will actually educate, inspire, and make you think. The future is now. Topics and music that affect your life from Universal Broadcasting Network. Tune in at ubnradio.com.